seconds, 13 seconds. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob on the Bob. Here it is Sunday, 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 Sunday. And let's read a little from Hebrews 11, 8 through 12. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive from an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out knowing whither he went. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in the strange country, dwelling in turbulence, with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him. Heirs with him of this same promise. 10. For he looked for a city which hath a foundation, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and he was delivered a child when he was past age, because he joined him in faithful who had promised. And therefore sprang there even of one, and him as God as dead. Deed? As so many as the stars of the sky, in the multitude and the sands of which the sea shore, innumerable. By everyone worldly stranded, Abraham had it made. He was very rich, right? He had a lot of money, but he had no heirs. And so God said, hey, I'm going to give you, but God, I'm 100, and my old lady, she's even more dusty. Anyway, so God said, have faith. I have faith in you, right? So bingo, bango, who knew? But bang, they had a baby. And then it was the first son, right? And as the son grew into manhood, God said to, the devil tempts and God challenges. And that's kind of how it goes. And the temptation is that of our ego, right? And what we're going to do with our life, right? Serve God, praise God, praise Jesus with love's co-creation. Or are we going to do whatever our ego wants us to do? Let ego go. Yep, let it go. And how do we let ego go? By not worrying about it, by not thinking about it, by being our best in every day and every way, taking the piece of love's co-creation and making it stronger. With Jesus' grace, unconditional forgiveness. That's one of our greatest tools, forgiveness. So here we are in a world that's quite seemingly gone insane. But really, if you look at the world today, it's no worse than it ever has been. I'm an old guy. I'm heading towards 80. And in every day and every way, I take the piece of the earth. I don't question God. God, why am I out here in the middle of nowhere with no money, no power, no nothing, no car, can't go anywhere, can't do anything? The world has always had problems, and that is so true. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? Here it is, 4 minutes and 24 seconds. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. Here he is, that is good-looking young man, your Sensie Owl Bob, your grad, here to tell you a story. And all my life has been I find peace in myself. That's right. That's how I deal. Yep, exactly. Peace and love's co-creation, right? That's the faith. The faith isn't something that we have. No, it's something that God puts in us. And this lesson of Abraham, God had faith in Abraham, right? That's why he gave him a son at over 100 and then waited 20 something years before he said, okay, take the boy up on the hill and offer him and sacrifice, cut his throat. You know? And Abraham said, really? Really? You told me all this stuff about the Abrahamic scene gonna stem from my loins, and here's my only son, and you want me to whack him? Really? Well, okay. I guess you know better. And God did. Right? Because off in the thickets was the perfect lamb for sacrifice. Because Isaac was no dummy guy. Dad, why are we coming up here? And what are we going to sacrifice? How come we didn't bring a lamb? What's going on? Are the numbers 240 of importance or just random? Nothing is just random. Test of faith. Lamb appeared. Yep. And so that's where we are. We are in a place where we're looking at a lamb to appear. The world seems like it's going to hell in a handbasket, but it always has because it's based on our, the preacher said, the love of money is the worst evil, but, money ain't bad. Just give us some more, So the real question is free will. What is it good for? What is it good for? It's good for the fact that we are the deciders what we're going to do. Let's see. Your name ends with 240. So I was wondering, again, there is no circumstance that is just, oops, it's just a circumstance, doesn't mean anything, right? So what does 240 mean? Can you illuminate us? Free will cost us. But no, free will is just like anything else. It's a tool, It gives us the opportunity to make a choice on what we're going to do instead of us, just following the rhythm, the law, right? The Mosaic law, right? The scriptures are a great tool, but to see it as a law, not really, because we have free will. We can choose we are the deciders. And that's what God wants us to do, decide. Love's co-creation is all about us deciding to take part, to be that covenant, right? To be that, we all have our place here. And the thing is that we move forward, right? Have love in our heart. That we do our best to serve. Not just serve like, here, God, here's your cheeseburger. No. With doubt, right? Well, doubt is an illusion because if you doubt things, what I am extremely naive. I trust in everything, but I was given the extraordinary gift of being observant. So I watch everything go down. I don't really say anything until I kind of get a picture of what God wants me to do. And I still don't have any idea what it is, but I know it is to move forward in God's grace, right? To walk forward in grace and not in doubt. And most people do have doubt because doubt comes from fear. And the mechanism of fear is, all we have to fear is fear itself. And that's very true. FDR was saying a truth, and that fear is just put there. Two reasons fear is there. Back in the day when we were, not the number one on the food chain. I mean, we were on the food chain to be eaten. So we had to be able to, like our brain fills shit in. We see a little shadow over there, and we start running because our brain is filled in that it's not just a shadow, it's saber-tooth tiger waiting for us to get closer to become lunch. So That isn't fear, that's observation. So that's really where we're at. Well, are we observing or are we in fear, right? That's the real dynamic. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. I have 39% left on the old rigmarole here, and I want you to continue. Now, our friend here is Wheels text to can be associated with doubt. You are very well spoken, and I do agree with you. You're saying, okay, so I'm not in doubt of anything, you know, because I walk in the grace of love's co-creation, right? I am the agape love of being the doula of Jesus Christ. Whatever needs to be done, I will do it in my best, you know. I will not try, I will do my best, right? And that's what it's about, doing your best. What are you going to do? You're going to do your best? Or you're just going to be, oh, I'm too lazy, I'm not going to show up, blah, blah, blah. No, you got to show up. You know? And you have to, you know, be the doula to bring forth the new life. That's what we're here to do, bring forth the new life. What happened in the past is in the past. And the best thing you can do about the past, like the Old Testament, read it. You know, I read it all the time. I read the Bible every day, you know. And it is the thing that kicks off my conversations with God, right? And so I talk to God all the time. And this coming Wednesday, I will be 6 weeks without transportation, right? So all the wars that are going around, right? In Russia and the Strip and Sierra Leone, which is the worst, 82 million people are living the life of those who live in the Strip. And the two military forces, the, whatchamacallit, Army and the Rapid, something force, they're like the National Guard. And they're not shooting at each other, they're killing the innocent bystanders, right? Because they want to get rid of them so they can own all the wealth. And that's why France and the United States and Germany and England and Russia are all there giving weapons to both sides to kill the innocent other, right? The ones in the crosshair. Your brother and sister of another mother of a different culture, right? And that's in the crosshairs of xenophobia, right? No one's talking about because those people are black. The folk, in the Strip, they're not quite black. They're almost black. They're sand and word, So what are you going to do about it, What can you do about it? No more war, please, yes. Now, in 1947, the United States was at least honest in that they had called our military the War Department because they were having wars with the Indians, the French, the Spanish, you name it. We were having wars with everyone and just taking their stuff with, no legal reason except we had might makes right. And in our, manifest destiny corridor of, South America and the Pacific and parts of the Atlantic, it's, we ruled the roost, just like England did back in the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century, right? I imagine peace before I sleep. That's the way to go, right? And I look at the wars that are all over, and I understand that war is a racket. Go read Colonel Butler's book, War is a Racket. Most, highly decorated warrior in American history, give or take. So to imagine peace before you go to bed is a proper thing to do. And I am going to take a vow from this point on. I too am going to visualize peace. Yep, Revelation speaks of wars and rumors of war, right? And, end times ain't coming anytime soon, kids, because we have a lot of learning to do. I think the Bible tainted with ideology of people who have rewrote it many times. Yes, of course. And it's like a game of telephone with blind monkeys seated at typewriters who don't know how to type. That's the Bible. But still, God's message comes through. That's the miracle of the Bible. And the Old Testament, which is the Torah of the Hebrews, that basically is only one of the three books. There's the Torah, the Talmud, and the Kabbalah. And those books are, we should be reading those books too because they're esoteric in nature and occult in foundation. And once we realize where all this is coming from, we can get a better handle on our relationship with, unconditional love, right? And that's who and what we are meant to be. Innocent, right? I'm the most naive guy. I believe everything everyone tells me, but I was given the gift of sight, meaning I can see where people are coming from, where they're going to, and I don't need to judge them. I can just help. I assist them to do their best. To read it, let's try to connect to my Creator. So a good place to start reading the Bible is out in the middle of the most natural place you can find. Now, I live out in the deep green. I mean, I really live in the woods. I mean, I am that guy, and I have no internet, I have very little of any of the connections to the modern distractions. I have no car. I can't leave. I have to walk a mile and a half to my neighbor's house to sit on his deck to go on the internet. And often he's there or guests are there, so I can't be there when that's going on. So, I'm limited just by the physicalities of things. But I used to make a good chunk of change, and because I have a lot of skill sets that people found valuable and for. But when I died in 2014, I realized that I had to get rid of all that and serve as doula to love's co-creation through the tool of Jesus Christ's unconditional forgiveness. And so what happened is I'm out here in my beautiful deep green. There's nothing to, it's like just gorgeous, gorgeous the last 20-something years. And then pandemic happens in 19 and 20 and all the rich people, because we were just a bit too far for rich people, right? But not now. They're ripping and tearing everything they can to build casinos around our lake. And big billion-dollar gated communities on tops of mountains where you can't get at them, right? It's like a video game. You know how I started in the Bible? I have the book, so I've read it. I have this, big print version of the Bible, which is good. And I basically make sure I'm wearing my glasses. And then I kind of just let the book crack open wherever it wants to, and I just go and touch a verse, and I read the verse, right? And I go, I read what's in front of the verse and what's in back of the verse. And what's interesting about my Bible, it's annotated. So there are lots of little notes on the side from the publisher, like, hey, read also this, and read, like if you're reading John, you normally end up with Psalms or Acts, right? And because he constantly goes back to that as a good primer. So that's where we're at, That's how you read the Bible. There's many other great books that facilitate reading the Bible, like a book called The Course in Miracles, right? And there's another very good book by a guy named Bloom, and it's called The Healing Runes, Celtic Runes. Those two books really help connect you to God's unconditional love, right? especially when you're studying the Bible. So just take each section and reflect on it, not like an actual story. Well, it is an actual story, it's a proverb, it's a saying. And plus, anything that is written is a basic spell. That's why they call it spelling. I mean, every word, each letter in that word goes to, a letter. And that's why you asked me about, my name being the number. What number did you say it was? 2. So that is the spell of my name, right? So you deconstruct that. And that's why reading the Torah, and Torah is just, the translation of the word Torah from Hebrew to Greek to English. Translate, you suck. And that's what the Old Testament really goes on about, how we suck. Not about how to build up our self-esteem, but we suck. Yes, 240. So, what is your interpretation of Jahe Rubis? Hey there. So, what's your interpretation of 240? Wheels. Let's see what other little. Like when Abraham arrived in the land God promised to him, only to find it occupied. Verse 9 tells, as Abraham remained a sojourn in the land of promise, living in tents for the rest of his life. Right. He didn't, he left a place where he was like really, had a great house, a great, wealth, great everything. Why should I leave here, God? When everything is so groovy. Leave. So he does. Takes everyone, gets everyone a tent and rolls it up and heads into the hills. Like right now in the Middle East, who is living in tents? Who is being really seriously tried? Not the children of David, no. So, anyway, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and where are we? We are about 31% of the juice in the phone, and you guys are responding quite nicely. So how about, subscribing, telling people about this channel, because the more we can talk, the more we can share, the more we can build a cadre that's all across this planet, where each member of the cadre does their best. When I asked the question, I have no real meaning for the number. I just assumed that you, as a deep thinker, may have some relevance to share on the numbers. Right, 240. I'll have to go think on that. But again, it's a spell, right? Every letter, every word, it's a spell. And so my writings, if you get a hold of me at the dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail, and once I get my digital world back in order, I will text you my writings, right? And you can go to Griot Publishing. I have back in the days when I started writing my X-rated Griot Publishing at some, I forget what place I put it in. See, I'm definitely digitally and bureaucratically challenged. Here it is, 24 minutes and 56 seconds, 30% left. So let's see what we can do about getting more people to watch the show. What Bible should I pick up? I will give it a shot. Well, anyone. I can't believe our church has a zillion Bibles. They're all King James, right? So back when I had a car, we have a food pantry, but we used to have real food. We used to have real vegetables. We had real eggs. We had real milk. We had real, meats and fish. And we have none of that. All we have is super processed food. That's all we got because it's the easiest thing to receive. And the people who run the food bank, they don't care anymore about nutrition or anything. All they want is, oh, we're open. We're giving food away. Hey, you want to have a birthday party? It's like the thing should be used for. When we filled out our little 501c3, and I helped put that, I wrote the mission statement, and I said, care and share community center, a hand up, not a hand out. And we haven't been doing too much hand up. During the hurricane, yeah, we did a lot of that. But, so it's no big deal. I mean, the world that we have, Europe on the edge of nuclear war, Israel about to nuke everyone in the Mideast, and don't believe a word I say. I'm just a chucklehead. I have no idea what I'm saying, right? I'm just communicating the notions that pop into my head. That's what a griot does, tells a story of the situation, It does it in parable form. And I don't even do that. I do a stream of consciousness form. So the rain is coming, which is good. We haven't really had any real rain for a while, so this is good. And so we'll have around an inch, and that'll be nice. And we'll go back to being sunny and warm. So it's, as long as it can stay sunny and warm until I'm trying to move into because I can't take another. I mean, I literally live out in the woods in the deep green. And 310 days of the year, it's great. It's, spring, summer, and fall. Right? But that winter, which is about 50, 60 days of pretty nasty cold, that's, last year I nearly died from that. Bedlam. And it's always been the bedlam, It's Bedlam is the contrast of love's co-creation to temptation. Temptation is our ego going on and on and on. You want this, you want that, you got to do. No, that's Bedlam, right? We are so tricky, but we've given up empathy for being tricky. Go watch, Charlie Chaplin's A Great Dictator. That's a good film. Go watch Daniel Day-Lewis in the movie Gangs of New York. Go watch Sean Connery in the film Zardos. Right? These are all illusions. These are the bedlam, right? The potential. Not what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is what's right here, right now, the Garden of Eden. That's all we have to do is live in the Garden of Eden right here, right now. We don't need to have wars. We don't need to have ice. We don't need to be, putting people in camps. We don't need any of the violence or anger or fear that is postulated and propagated by our, have you heard about the asteroid that hit in 2027? Well, a lot of stuff is going on around in our solar system. We've had 3 interjections of fast movers through our solar system. 2 just went zing. The one that's with us now, number 3, was coming flat in at 18,000 miles an hour and zipped around the sun, the backside, and kind of, instead of running into Mars, it kind of got captured. But that was like an impossible. It slowed down to a rate where it could go into orbit around Mars. A better one. Yep, used to be before oil. Yep, exactly. And the people who are in charge of the oil are basic criminals, right? All those little countries, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, all that stuff was manufactured by Europeans, after World War One, and basically gave it to criminal individuals who would do exactly what the oil companies wanted to do. Mr. Rockefeller et al., Mr. Rothschild. Purposely hide behind the sun, right? So anyway, of course then I mean we are the aliens. You got to remember that this little you know bag of water isn't you. This is our avatar, right? So we can go around and live in the sandbox, have experiences, and learn what our true spiritual self is. So the lesson of Abraham, was to walk in God's grace, which is God's faith in us to do the right thing. Now we're stupid puddinheads, so we do majority of the time the wrong thing, but that's okay. So you think the world is weird? I mean, everything that's occurred, right? So in 1947, we went from the War Department to the Defense Department because we're going to have more wars of criminal injustice for economic reasons. And so we couldn't call it defense, when we go and overthrow legal governments like in Iran and in Turkey and in Italy and in South America, we had to basically say it was in our defense, right? And because if we kept what was really true with the War Department, so, they're going back to being true. That's what I love. I love me my Donald Trump. And I love the way that South Park is presented. The only people who have the nut, they're keeping their nut, is the boys from South Park, right? I more than believe in God. I offer myself totally 100% as, love's co-creation's doula, right? The word God it's any, we're not supposed to name. El is the unknowable, right, in Hebrew, right? But in the beginning, and in the beginning, Elohim, well, who is Elohim? Is the plural for demigods, meaning the guys lower end of the totem pole, right? They got more juice than we do, but they're still, and they're not even, angels, they are, there are all these names and just get lost in all the hierarchy of it all. And who put that there? Us, morons who want to reclaim authority over God. Yep. Yeah, to believe is not to know. Exactly. Belief is something you can lose very easily. To know of God is always his gift. Exactly. Thank you very much, Ja. Ja said it better than I could. To believe is not to know. To know of God is always his gift. Exactly. Well, I've been saying this, faith isn't something we manufacture. No, it's a thing, this lesson of Abraham. God had faith in Abraham, so he gave him a really hard test. For some reason, you believe in the God you were born into. Exactly, which is your ego, the identity of your ego. Me, powerful. It's all about, my life is all about me. No, sorry, buddy. Your life is about the we in me. Your life is meaningless unless you have the understanding of love's co-creation with the we in me. You know about Bohemian Grove. Oh yeah, do I ever know about Bohemian Grove? Yep, yep. So I went to prep school with all those kids. The Rockefellers, the Raytheons, the Lockheeds, the U.S. Steels. All those kids, right? And they were born in Ego's ceremony, right? So Bohemian Grove is a little chunk of property in the West other ones. That's just the most well known. That's the more Hollywood version. And, they do inappropriate things. If you ever seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut, which was Kubrick's last film, and they cut all the good stuff out. He was one of the only directors that had, you can't screw with my movie, right? Burning. The burning owl? Right, okay. So, what is the significance of the burning owl? So, what is the burnt offering, right? So, that is within, Hebrew, virtually every Abrahamic religion deals with, because look at Abraham, he was going to whack his only begotten son, just like Creator sent his only begotten son, basically himself, because we are that co-creation with love's co-creation, right? We are the covenant, we are the ark, we're the saucepan, right? So the burning of the owl is this character that goes way back. I mean, why my name is Sensie Owl Bob, right? Is that when I was a anthropologist and went and lived with indigenous folk. I'm in Brazil. I was sent into the depths of the Amazon to where they left me out. Meaning, if the tribe that they wanted to make contact with didn't make contact with me, I'd be dead. So I sat on the side of the dwindling Amazon, and there was a big pile of firewood, and they said, "Don't let the fire go out, not even during the day." So I was there for 2 days, and then the tribe just kind of walked out of the woods and looked at me. I looked at them, and they were wearing a grass skirt, bone in the nose, the whole thing. And they looked at me. I looked at them, and they said like let's go. And so I did. I followed them, and we walked 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 all through the deepest, darkest, rainforest of Brazil. And it's amazing because where we walked a path, follow the yellow brick road, follow. It just kept appearing, our path. And then we came out into this vast valley of thousands of people. And that scene out of Avatar, when they go and they find a big tree and everyone's living in hammocks, that was pretty much it. That's why I'm a hammock boy. So I stayed with them. And they showed me everything there was to see in God's green earth. And then they brought me back to that site. And basically, some people showed up as soon as they were gone. Some people showed up and took me away. So it was quite an interesting experience. The golem. The golem, yep. That is the robot of ego. So the owl, low battery. Okay. About 20% left. Another 10, 15 minutes. The clan's gonna rumble out soon. So I'm not going to be able to do another YouTube for the next foreseeable, until like maybe next Sunday, So don't let this, you guys keep this up. Go watch my other shows. I've got like 2,000, more than 2,000 shows. and just go, go to, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob, boom, and then it says videos, boom, and then boom, 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 boom. Stop at one, look at it, watch it for a little bit. If it's interesting, stay watching. If it's not, go boom, 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 and just take down, save the ones you like. Put them on your hard drive, put them on a thumb drive, just save them because basically all of this is going to go away relatively soon. Thanks, Jaha Rubis. So, Jamie, is that you, Jaha? I think it is. That's why they have a baby doll as well. Yep. It is. Okay. Well, good to see you. I'm going nowhere. I'm here in the deep green. That's it. I don't have wheels, don't have any means of transportation. Luckily, I've taken care of all my medical stuff until, next year, right? So I'm all good. And basically, every night I go to bed and I talk to God and said, you want to take me tonight? No problem. And then I have wild and crazy fun dreams. And I wake up around 4. I go to bed when it gets dark, somewhere around 8, 9 o'clock. I kind of fall asleep around 10. I wake up around 3 or 4, or not, and when I wake up, I say, thank you, God, right? Okay, what are we doing today? So I'm not going anywhere, anytime soon anyway. And, if we know about anything the Hidden Hand is doing, it's just because it's a distraction. So Bohemian Grove is just the tip of the iceberg of its profanity. And our world is the tip of all the wars, all the suffering, all that. So if I do do any more shows, I'll probably do them like around, I think, starting around 11 is a good time because the people in Europe, it's already their afternoon and they're going home after work time. So anyway, what it is, your challenges are your gifts. In every day and every way, take a piece of the earth of love's co-creation, make it stronger by you being consciously intent in everything you do as the decider. You decide, no one else. Don't let your fear decide for you. Don't let your ego decide for you. Don't let any of those artificial artifacts decide for you. See it clearly. Okay. So 43 minutes, and when we get 4s across the line. So come on, guys. More subscribers, more thumbs up, more people on the channel. Write comments. I want to see some comments on there, right, of what you guys are thinking, right? So I love you guys. You stay well. Be good. I'll talk to you soon.